Welcome back. Uh, Chunko's Comics and Nerd Culture, back in the small but mighty comic room. Mike here. Um, Man, let's see if I can really do better with this microphone. I don't think I'm keeping it uh, close enough to my face. It's like it's not recording loud enough. Even though I've got a really nice microphone. Um, so yeah, this video, I think I'm going to do. This is going to be the first in a series of people watch these. But I wanted to talk a little bit about eBay's and auctions for comics specifically. A lot of this will apply to other things, but I think for comics specifically is what I'm focused on because that's what I know. Um, just want to talk a little bit about buying uh, on auctions, specifically eBay, and I'll talk about a couple other sites, and talk about selling as well. Now, selling is something in that's some people in comics find to be distasteful, particularly if you're reselling comics. Uh, I don't understand that. I don't understand that point of view. I think that, um, especially if you're doing something to improve a comic, you're doing cleaning and pressing, or if you're capitalizing on a trend, you happen to have something where it suddenly a movie is announced and it becomes more expensive, or simple FOMO. People have the fear of missing out on something, and you're going to sell what's in demand. I think these are perfectly reasonable. But let's talk a little bit about that in a minute. Um, I want to touch on buying comics. I buy a lot of comics online, which is one of the reasons why I sell comics is to fund my habit, my comic addiction. Uh, I think if you are buying lots of comics, or if you want to buy lots of comics, I think uh, getting involved in selling comics makes a lot of sense. I'm not saying you need to be a comic dealer or something like that, but it makes sense to uh, offset some of the cost. Specifically, I mean, you see the books behind me. I mean, if you want to spend money on big comics, uh, there are very few people who can do that without uh, having some way to offset the cost. So, um, when buying comics, the first rule of thumb, of course, is uh, buy what you like. That's first. But I think that's uh, um, most reasonable people would say that's obvious. You know, buy what you enjoy. What you like to read or what you think you'll be interested in, or covers. I mean, I buy a lot of cover buys. I think the great thing about comic books, and one of the things I always try to impress upon people, is it's kind of like mixed media art. It's both you're both reading a story, that continuing story in most comics, and art as well. I mean, you enjoy the art, and there are certain comics I enjoy reading, and I don't like the art quite as much, and there are some comics where I love the art, or cover buys, as we say, where you like the cover, which is most Golden Age. Most Golden Ages tends to be cover buys, but I think both are valid, and I think buying certain comics like the stuff here that's slabbed. That I mean, you can read that in another format, but those comics, I'm obviously never going to crack those open and read them. Um, it would be absurd to do that with a lot of Golden Age comics. But there are other comics where I buy specifically just to read them, and I think both. Whatever works for you, that's what you should be focusing on first. Um, but then there's the other part to this, where it comes to um, looking long term. And I I've spoken in other videos about uh, I specifically talk about Golden Age comic books, so 1954 and earlier, 1954 to 19 start of Superman. I forgot the year of Action Comics #1. Um, 1938. I have a facsimile edition of Action Comics #1. So in 1938 to 1954 is Golden Age. Most people would accept, and I think those comics are specifically interesting to me because of what they are. I've talked about this before. and what they represent, that time period, and how uncommon or rare they are, the subject matter, and how there was this kind of like I don't know, it wasn't really associated with the time period where you have these kind of crazy, violent and scary and provocative books in a time where of relative social innocence, and I think that's an interesting, uh, kind of a disconnect. But I also think Golden Comics are the best thing to invest in. If you're investing in comic books, where you're thinking about these comic books for the long term, specifically if you're younger than I am, like if you're in your 30s and you're buying a bunch of modern comics and that's it. I mean, I and thinking about these as like something long term that you want to save for. What are you doing? No, get buy some Golden Age comics. Again, buy what you like, but if you're thinking long term, Golden Age or Silver Age keys are going to be like large cap stocks. They're going to go up consistently as long as people like comic books. If someday AI takes over and kills us all, then no. But who cares at that point, right? We're all in the Matrix anyway, and we're machine food or something. So, but yeah, as long as people are buying and collecting comic books, Golden Age and Silver Age keys are going to be like large cap stocks, and over time, like if you were in your 30s now and you were keeping Golden Age comics and Silver Age keys, specific Silver Age keys, uh, when you're my age and you're in your 50s, like you'll buy a house. Like there are a lot of people who are buying houses with comic books that they've collected over 20 or 30 years or something. Anyway, but that's just a suggestion. Again, buy what you like. I'm not trying to prescribe this to you. I'm just suggesting. Um, uh, so I think the other part to this is when you're buying, if you're buying Golden Age and Silver, again Silver keys. I want to specify Silver keys. I don't think all Silver Age comics are worth buying. I think you need to stick to Silver Age keys because, um, as I've said other times, this for investment. Again, enjoyment. Buy what you want. Uh, I think that there's a lot of comics in the Silver Age that are just not very good. There are Golden Age that aren't going to be valuable either. But I think most, if you're sticking in specific subject matter of horror, crime, good girl, these uh, type of subject matters that are going to always be in demand, I believe you're 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 going to do really well over time. But um, I would suggest, just for these types of comics, Golden Age and again Key Silver Age, uh, buy graded comics. People are going to say the opposite. I disagree completely. There's a big risk when you buy a Golden Age comic or Silver Age key of it being incomplete, it having a married cover, so a cover from a different comic that's been matched, or missing, missing pages or missing panels. Where that it was very common for kids to like cut things out of these, um, or having restored copies. Uh, it was very common to restore these books, and for a very long time, it was thought of as being a positive to conserve or restore comics from this time because you're trying to save them. A lot of them were falling apart, and people would put tape or other things, even like more professional things, Japanese paper and these things and color touch. And some of this can be very difficult to detect. So the person selling it to you, a raw copy of that comic, might not even know that it's restored. Um, and if it's very slight or if it's professionally done, you might not know. Like you might go over it with a black light, and you might never detect it unless you're very good with this kind of thing, which um, I would suggest most people think they're better than they really are at detecting restored comics. Um, and that's going to affect like what what you can sell that for. If you sell it raw, and you sell something that's restored, even well intentioned, I mean that's that can be a problem. And if you send it in to be graded, you're going to come back with a purple label, and it's going to be worth maybe half what you think it is. So um, I've been burned by this. I've been burned twice by this. Once an incomplete copy, and once a restored copy that I didn't know was restored. So that's a suggestion. Again, do what you want, but I think to protect, if you're spending that kind of money on comics, golden age in demand comics, um, I think buying it slabbed, it's going to be more expensive, but you're going to be protected. You know exactly what you're getting. That's why slab copies make sense, and I think it makes sense in those types. For other comics, I think it also makes sense, honestly, in any big money comic. I would buy slabbed if you're spending a lot of money, if you can. For all other comics, I buy them raw. Like anything modern, anything Copper Age, anything. If I could get something, Bronze Age, I think buying it raw, you're running less risk, I think, of having uh, types of issues I'm talking about, and I think your margins are going to be better. Um, and yeah, I would only buy raw modern comics. If you can, I mean, there are certain times where it's just not available. But I would try to stick to raw comics and send them in and have them graded yourself. That's what I do. Um, then the other part to this is when we talk about flipping comics, and this is the part that some people find distasteful. Um, Buying comics at the cover price, especially if it's something where there's this kind of rabid fear of missing out, and selling it for more on an auction site. Again, I think it's completely valid. If people are paying for it, that's the value of that book. Uh, this is also something where I think slabbing a comic makes sense. For example, the Absolute Batman uh, this past year was there was a huge, I mean, almost hysteria, like getting these a lot of these Absolute Batman comics, and uh, I got I don't know, a handful of copies of Absolute Batman #1, and I immediately sent them off to CGC with a 9.8 pre-screen with some other comics, and got them back. And It did take a little while. I mean, I think it didn't take as long as it was taking for some time. I think I got them back in like 45 days or something like that, and immediately listed them, sold each of them for $100. Uh, and some people say, well, that's terrible. How could you do that? Well, that's what it runs. That's what people are paying, and um, that that profit, uh, uh, I immediately put back into comic books. And I think you can do this with a lot of things. I think the absolutes, the ultimates in X-Men, specific artists. There are, um, I think Gabriel Dell'Otto. You can certainly flip those comics. There's some of the Nathan Zierdy comics that this works for. This Jenny Friesen, I think I'm saying the name right. Peach Momoko. These kind of like really in demand. Mark Spears. Uh, you can um, get one of these in demand covers, one of these uh, variants where they're more rare, and you can uh, send that in with a 9.8 pre-screen. I send a minimum of 10. I would or 10 to 15. I would send at a time. This keeps your shipping costs down. Have them graded, and you can immediately make profit on those comics. You'll sell them on eBay, and if you the key though with any of these variants is to do it immediately. You buy the comic, you immediately send it off, and you immediately put it up for sale, and people want these, and I think that again, Some people view this as distasteful, but I think that this is smart. I think you keep what you like, and if you have extras, I mean, if you bought 2, 3 copies and you send the rest off to be graded, despite the problems with CGC. Let's put that aside for a second, because what we're talking about here is listing and selling, and I'm talking specifically about eBay. Um, Again, so and then another part to buying comics that I would get to is, um, when you're on eBay, it's best to buy an auction rather than something where it's like a buy it now price. If you can find auctions, you can usually get it for cheaper. Um, Conversely, if you're selling, you always want to sell with a buy it now price, and allow for someone to make offers. Um, so just to summarize that, always buy an auction, and if someone has a set price, if they are allowing for offers, always make an offer, always make a lower offer and see. I mean, make it reasonable. I mean, you don't. I mean, if someone's selling something for $60 and you want to send an offer for $5, then odds are they're going to block you. I would block you. I mean, I would not allow for an offer that low, but I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to. Uh, I don't want to do that. So, but a reasonable offer, most times people will accept it, and you can save 10, 15, $20 sometimes, or even more. Like, there are, um, if you're getting into the hundreds or even thousands of dollars, sometimes you can save hundreds of dollars. So, always try, always make an offer, and if you can make a reasonable offer, you a lot of times can save a lot of money. Another tip. Um, One of the main sellers on eBay is a place called mycomicshop.com. Mycomicshop.com is an online seller. Um, and if you you'll find a lot of really great books that they're selling like all the time. And a lot of times, if you go to their website and type in the exact same comic that they're selling on eBay, like, you can get it sometimes for 10, 20, 25% off what they're charging. Uh, I know that sounds absurd, but it's true. It will always be cheaper if it's listed on their site, and sometimes it's like considerably cheaper. I've saved hundreds of dollars on like a specific comic just by doing that. So mycomicshop.com, uh, go to their website and you'll save money. Another tip for buying on eBay. And honestly, mycomicshop.com is it's a great place to buy comics. They have a great reputation. Um, their grading is, usually it's either spot on or it's really conservative. So, especially if you're buying one of these older books, like, in a lot of times if they have it, say it listed as a 1 or a 1.5, if you send it in, it'll come back as like a 2. So I mean, like, which is considerable, based upon what you spent. So again, another big tip. Uh, Another one, uh, for auctions. If you uh, are waiting around a lot of times in the evening, and you go, just type in comic books or Silver Age comic books or whatever X-Men comic books, or whatever, and you can do a search. You can set that setting for, rather than closest match, to expiring first. So like the auctions that are ending soonest. And a lot of times you can see comics where, like, nobody's bidding on them, or there's like one bid, or it's very, very low. Uh, Wait till about 5 seconds left and put in a bid, and you can get great deals. A lot of times on whole lots of comics. Just wait right to the end and try to drop a bid that you're comfortable with, and a lot of times you can save a lot of money that way. Again, this is why buying on auctions is good. Selling on auctions can be bad. Um, Selling, just some more tips on selling that I'd like to get to. Um, when you list something, look it up online. GoCollect.com is what I tend to use. I think people use different ones, but GoCollect.com is what I use, and look for the fair market value. And I will look at what's sold similarly. eBay and Heritage is what they track. Um, I think Comic Connect. I think they do them as well. And not Comic Link. Comic Link does not uh, give their results to any of these companies, so anything that sells on Comic Link doesn't show up. But you'll be able to see what something sells for, and kind of they'll suggest a fair market value, but you'll be able to determine a fair market value based upon what's selling recently. Um, Once you determine that the fair market value of what you're selling at a given grade or raw, uh, I would list it, and I'd list it at about 5% under most of the time, and that's for most comics. And you will find if you list something fair market value or just under fair market value, even though people will say slabs don't sell anymore, it's not true. They do. And I think if you have a reasonable price, it might take some time, but you'll sell that comic. And particularly if it's in demand. Now, if it's in high demand, like if it's something that everyone's buying immediately, uh, you might want to go a little bit above fair market value because, for example, as soon as it was announced that Jason Momoa was playing Lobo, I had a Lobo #1 sitting around that I paid $70 for last year, and immediately people are buying it for 100, 120, 130, $140, and I think I sold mine for 145, and it continued up after that. Uh, the fair market value wasn't matching at that time because people weren't looking into the hype and the FOMO. So always pay attention to that, and if you have something uh, where there's this trend where it's going up, pay attention to that, and you might want to sell. I mean, uh, that's a comic that's very common. You could buy it again, but when people are going crazy and they're just buying, 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 this is a time where you should consider selling that book. Side note: I don't sell Golden Age. I don't sell any of my Golden Age comics. Those are staying. So yeah, or my like really hard to get keys. I'm not selling those. But like something like that where it's very common, I can replace it immediately, and you see a bunch of people are like going crazy because they want to buy this comic. List it, sell it. What are you doing? Why are you holding that? I mean that it's gonna come down, man. You know, get you some money, buy some more comics. Comics, I mean, now obviously if this is like a dream comic for you, it's a part of your personal collection. It's going to stay. Yeah, I'm not telling you to sell that, but if it's just a comic that you're holding, it's like sell that, brother. What are you doing? Um, yeah. Also, know your margins, and when you're doing this flipping of comics, know what you paid for it, know how much it cost you if you slabbed it or sent it off for a press, um, and really consider if it's worth selling that comic. I mean, certain comics it's worth just putting it in a box and sitting on it, like that Lobo. I mean, I bought it for $70, with slabbed. It was already done, but I was just sitting on it because I kind of thought that Lobo would make an appearance eventually. I also have an Omega Man #3 that I'm still sitting on. I think that's going to go to the moon personally, and I'm not selling it right now, even though it went up quite a bit. Excuse me. Um, but yeah, I think it makes sense. I would say to have your personal collection that this is something that I'm holding. I don't want to sell this. This is I love this thing. I mean, the stuff on my walls here. I'm not selling any of that. I love that. I'm not getting rid of that. I'm not holding that just so I could sell it. But I have boxes of stuff where it's just reading stuff, and then I have boxes of stuff where I'm just holding that, you know, to sell it, or it's up for sale on eBay right now. I think it makes sense to do this, to have your personal collection, have stuff you're speculating on, and then your reader copies that are just for personal enjoyment that you just want to read. Um, Also, uh, eBay allows you to promote comics, promote your sale, and they take a percentage of the sold amount if they promote it for you. So they're like bumping it to the top when people do a search, and they'll suggest it to people if they're looking for similar comics and this kind of thing. And if your margins are high enough, do that. It makes sense. It's usually like 9 to 12%. And again, uh, if you had a comic book that you bought for say $10 and you sent it off uh, to be graded, um, depending on your CGC membership level, it's usually 30 something dollars probably, if you're a member. So you're in maybe $45, 45 $47, and if you're selling that comic, uh, and that comic's selling for 100 or more, it's probably worth it. You're going to sell it easier and quicker, and I think it makes sense to do it. If your margin's very very narrow, I would maybe consider don't doing that. And if it doesn't sell, you just sit on it for a while, maybe pull it off once the listing comes down. Also, consider using FedEx ground economy. It's it's just a couple bucks more than U.S. Postal Service. You make the selection on your eBay sale. You do it up front. You tell everybody, it's this, it costs this. Like for a slab, it's like I usually charge $12, and that $12. It's sometimes it's a little bit over, sometimes it's a little bit under. But it's right around that for a slab, a CGC graded book. Um, but the tracking is way better. It's way more accurate, and uh, FedEx doesn't lose packages. I've never had that happen. Postal Service, all the time. I wouldn't say all the time. That's not. But uh, I've had two packages lost completely, and I've had more than three or four where it fell out of the tracking completely for a week, 2 weeks, or more, where it's like, and then suddenly your package shows up. So uh, that reliability factor and it's also like there've been a few times where it's damaged. Um, I I would avoid that if you can. That's just personal. Do what you want, but I find FedEx to be way more reliable than the U.S. Postal Service. And I think if that's just a couple bucks more, I would explain that to anybody you're selling to if they take issue with it. But I think it's better. It's going to alleviate headaches for you of lost packages and having to give refunds, and then suddenly the package shows up for somebody. It, it's a suggestion, but yeah, again, do what you want. But I think you'll feel better about your shipments. Also, last thing, package your comics correctly if you're selling comics. Uh, you should be sending comics the way you want to receive the comics. Okay, and think about the person on the other end who's receiving this, and the how it's going to be received when they get it, and how are they going to open it. That this is important, and it's like kind of an underrated thing. Like taking two pieces of your kid's diaper box and cutting it up, and then mummifying tape around a couple comics and putting it in a paper mailer is garbage. That is dog shit. Don't do that. Look, I know people did that in the 90s. Yes, I know, I know, I know. Stop it. Don't do that. Packaging exists, and this is called a Gemini mailer. This is made for books and comics and video games or something. It's a reinforced cardboard package. It's already made. These are not expensive. If you're buying comics, you're going to get these all the time because anybody worth their salt is going to send you raw comics in these. And all you're going to do, you're going to uh, bag and board your comics. You're going to put single bubble wrap layer around them. If you can reinforce maybe with some cardboard, it's a good idea. And all you need is you're going to use some painter's tape, and you're going to just two pieces. That's all it takes. No, you don't need to do 5, 6 pieces with pull tabs and all that. You don't need to. It two pieces to hold it in place. Another couple pieces here to hold this, and then you're going. This uh, folds up, and then just packing tape around here, and you label those here, and that's ready. I stamp mine with a do not bend stamp on mine. Uh, I don't think it really matters. This is really difficult to bend. Like I'm trying to bend this, and like it takes a bit. Uh, so like this is something where it can be bent. Like somebody can run this over with their car. It can be damaged, but this it not only is this going to be uh, well reinforced when this is in the mail, but it's harder to damage than your goofy diaper box that you're cutting up. But it's also easy for the person opening it, especially if you're using painter's tape on the inside anywhere on the comic where that's not going to stick very hard. And it's easy to really cut this and open this and get to the books. I mean, you don't want to mummify things with tape. That's not securing anything. So again, that I would always use that for raw books. For slabs, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more. Slab comics, what I have are these. This is a box. It's a 16 by 12 by 4 box. I have, I'll buy these 50 at a time. And you can see it's like that. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take underneath here. I should prepare better. So that slab comic is going to go in one of these bubble wrap mailers, and then it usually folds at either side. It folds this down, folds on either side, and I wrap bubble wrap around all of this and reinforce on the inside with as much uh, uh, bubble wrap as you can, so it you can't feel that comic moving anywhere in there. Uh, I've shipped many comics this way, and I've never had any damage. Uh, yeah, a box, bubble wrap mailer, bubble wrapped around, and then enough bubble wrap reinforcement just again to reinforce. Again, this is something where uh, could somebody run that over with a truck or something? Yeah, that can happen. And but I've never had anybody report damage with this, and either the person that you're sending it to is going to be very happy with it. It's going to arrive intact. You're going to get positive feedback, and everybody's going to be thrilled with the results. Uh, that's what I have. It just eBay stuff, and I uh, I welcome all the hate. I know that somebody's watching this seething because it's like, oh man, dirty reseller. Guilty. That's me. I don't. Uh, uh, Again, I think that if you're buying lots of comics and if you really want to buy big comics, you need to either be a rich guy or you need to figure out how to sell comics online. Um, that was just eBay. There are other ways to sell, but I stuck with that specifically. Um, and yeah, anybody who comes across this again, please like, comment, subscribe, or hate, comment, and subscribe. Uh, yeah, I don't care about a thumbs down, man. Do it, or yeah, yell at me in the comments or whatever. I think that that's fine by me. But engagement is really what I am hoping for. I'm hoping people like this format. If they like what I'm doing here, I'm gonna do some more eBay stuff. I might do like a weekly thing of what I bought and what I've sold on eBay, and kind of compare and show like money in, money out. That of what I did during the week. If people are interested in that, or if people hate this, then maybe I won't do these. But yeah, either way, let me know. Wow, this is a long one. Yeah, hope everybody's good, and cheers for now.